What's up, guys? Welcome to Daily Dose of Reddit. This is your host, Zach, and today's subreddit is r/EntitledParents.
Alrighty, this story's called Bakery Mom. So, from about 2013 to 2017, I worked and helped out in my sister's bakery. It was just us, all day, every day. Now, bakeries are magnets to kids and their parents. That is understandable. Because of this, I had nearly daily encounters with entitled parents and their kids. I got a million stories to tell, but this one is one that I remember very well. So it was about 1 in the afternoon. My sister had left me alone in the shop to run some needed errands, paying some bills, getting some supplies for the shop, and etc. I tell her I can handle it. Everything was pretty much already done for the day, and there were only 2 customers in the shop. Very quiet, and I already finished the chores in the back. I sit down at the computer and play on my phone for a bit. Now, I heard Spoiled Brat before they were even inside the shop. I see him and his mom walking on the sidewalk towards the door. Spoiled Brat is screaming and crying bloody murder. He is red in the face, hitting and kicking his mom's legs. He looks about 4 or 5 years old. Entitled Parent looked to be in her early 20s. Entitled Parent walks up to the counter. I put my phone away and go into customer service mode. Hi, welcome to Redacted. How can I help you? A vanilla latte, and is the Wi-Fi free? I tell her yes, point out which Wi-Fi name is ours, and make her latte. The whole time, her son is still crying and screaming. Entitled Parent is literally ignoring him. She drops some toys out of her purse for him, like he's a dog, sits down and starts browsing on her phone. The toys seem to calm her kid some, and he starts to play. When I bring over her latte, she says, "I'll only be an hour, waiting on an email." I go back behind the counter. Soon enough, Spoiled Brat gets bored with his toys and starts screaming again. He's yelling, "Mommy!" to the top of his lungs, kicking her and clearly trying to get her attention. She never looks up from her phone. Spoiled Brat starts taking his rage out on the shop. He kicks other tables, throws his toys, kicks the display case, and tries stealing cookies from the 2 other customers in the shop. I am shocked. His mother never looks up from her phone, not even once. I apologize to the other customers and replace their cookies on the house. "Excuse me, ma'am, your son is disturbing the other customers and kicking the display case. It can move if he manages to unlock the brakes. It's dangerous." "Yeah, he's upset because I wouldn't let him nap today. He'll be fine, should pass out on his own." She still doesn't look up from her phone for this conversation. I try to be reasonable and offer the child a cup of chocolate milk and cake pop, hoping to calm him down. The plan appears to work. Spoiled Brat sits down on the floor by his mother, drinks his milk, and eats the cake pop. I think it's finally over. Nope! A regular customer comes in with his daughter. I know them very well, and I like his daughter. We have a game where I would tell her a fact and she would guess if it's true or false. Her dad tells me that they are there to buy brownies. Since his daughter got an A on a test, he's letting her have a sleepover party with her friends. I congratulate her on the grade and go to the display case for the brownies. I don't know why, but seeing me get brownies sets Spoiled Brat off. He throws himself down, starts crying, kicking, and screaming again. He's demanding brownies, screaming for his mom and brownies. Entitled Parent looks up, finally looks at brownies, then at me. "Can I have one of those? Whatever to shut him up." Now, here I decided to have a little revenge. I tell her, "One moment, since I'm busy with my regular customer. He wants a dozen brownies for the party." I count out the dozen and then give him what's left of the tray, about 6 brownies, on the house. I tell his daughter they're for her since she did so well on the test. They pay and leave. Entitled Parent comes up to the counter after that. "Can I have a brownie?" Barely looking up from her phone, she is glued to her phone. Me, trying not to smile like the Cheshire Cat, "I'm sorry, but he bought all we had and we don't have any more out until tomorrow. Can I offer your son something else? We got cookies and many kids like our chocolate chip." "Whatever, I just want him to shut up." She bought him a cookie. Spoiled Brat isn't having it. He stomped on and destroyed the cookie. I had to sweep and clean up the floor while he continued to have a fit. His mother continues to ignore him. To cut this long story short, they stayed for about an hour and a half before Entitled Parent left, dragging her spoiled brat behind her. I swear that child never took a breath while he screamed, and his mother just didn't care. I kinda felt sorry for him. Clearly, he wanted his mom's attention and all she wanted was to play on her phone and for him to shut up. I told my sister about this when we were closing out. She couldn't believe it and said if they came back, to let entitled parent know that she will be asked to leave if that happens again. Thankfully, I can't recall ever seeing her and her child again. I have many more stories of entitled parents, and I'll be posting them if you like this one. Okay, given her age, it's implied that she was a teen mom at one point. So, yeah, I have sympathy for, unplanned pregnancies, especially in teenagers, because couldn't imagine. But good God, woman, that's your child. I don't care if it was an accident or he was an accident or not. But you still gotta, that's your responsibility, and he's wreaking havoc all over everything. And stomping on cookies. Cookies! Man, gosh. This story's called 14-Year-Old Entitled Kid Throws Tantrum. Entitled Dad Left Her, Then Refused to Pay for What She Stole. This happened back in 2016 when I was a supervisor in a one-man store. The store was very small but popular with the elderly residents and the nearby school. We have had a lot of entitled parents and kids. The shop being in one of the snobbiest areas in my city, the area is known for this, but this is one I remember like it was yesterday. Here's the cast. Entitled Dad. Entitled Kid, who I personally don't see as a kid, but a teenager. So the shop is quiet most of the time, with the most popular times being when the shop opens and 3 p.m., the school rush. Seriously, once the clock hits 3 p.m., the shop turns into a horror film with the horde of zombie kids rushing in. That day, the rush came and went, with the occasional parents complaining about the rush while simultaneously ignoring their kids trying to wreck the place. It started to calm down, with entitled dad and his teenage entitled kid remaining. They came to the till and seemed normal. Average dad and average 14-year-old girl. They had a lot of chocolate. A 360-gram Dairy Milk bar, a 360-gram Galaxy bar, a bag of Pick and Mix, a 5-pack of gum, 3 large bags of minstrels, and a magazine. Entitled Dad was paying when Entitled Kid started begging for a small Kinder Egg, which Entitled Dad said no to. That set Entitled Kid off. Entitled Kid began screaming and crying, screaming, "Please, please!" with Entitled Dad ignoring her. She then threw herself on the floor like a toddler, kicking and screaming about how unfair life was. I was lost for words and just watched. I have never seen a 14-year-old do that in my life. I was shocked. Entitled Dad said that all that chocolate was for her and that was enough. But Entitled Kid was ignoring him. What did Entitled Dad do? He just left. He left his teenage daughter in the store without saying a word. I didn't know what to do, so I just started getting on with my tasks. About 10 minutes later, I forgot she was even there. The shop was silent and I couldn't see her on the CCTV, so I assumed she left. That was until I noticed Entitled Dad standing outside the store on the phone without Entitled Kid about 10 minutes later. I realized she was somewhere in the store and I went looking. I found her hiding between the fridges, chocolate bar paper all around her. She was hiding and eating the stock. She had eaten at least 10 sweets while hiding. I stormed to the door and told Entitled Dad to get his ass in the store. He did, and I took him to Entitled Kid. She was eating another chocolate bar. I told Entitled Dad that he needs to pay for what Entitled Kid stole and get out. Entitled Dad refused. He said about how that wasn't his fault, so he shouldn't pay. And I should have been watching her as she is a child, so it was my fault and I should pay. I was furious. I said to Entitled Dad calmly how she is at least 14, not my responsibility, and should know that what she did is wrong, and if she can't pay, he would have to. Entitled Dad again refused and started screaming at me about how I am a child and didn't know what I was talking about. So I pointed out the obvious. Why leave a child with a child? Pretty irresponsible. He still refused, so I told him he left me no choice. His whole family will be banned from the store and the police will get involved. Entitled Dad grabbed Entitled Kid, paid for the stolen chocolate, and left, cussing me out. The sad part of it all, after all of that, he paid for what was stolen and bought Entitled Kid the Kinder Egg. Okay, at first, when it said the Entitled Dad left, I was like, okay, I can kind of justify that, you know. When your kid's throwing a tantrum, you don't want to give them attention, but it's kind of, to do that, to let the kid do that in a store and just leave them there. But I can kind of justify it. But I'm realizing he just left her because he just did not want to deal with her. He didn't want to be a parent. Goodness. That much chocolate? This story's called Entitled Kid Assaults Me with a Bat, then steals my bike, and his mom calls the cops on me for taking it back. This happened over 10 years ago when I was still in grade school. Okay, so when I was a kid, me and my mom lived in a trailer park, and it sucked. The people there were crazy, the house was falling apart, it was just a mess. But the worst person I knew was this one guy, Entitled Kid, who was the same age as me, so of course my mom and his mom tried from the very first day I was there to get us to become friends. Entitled Kid was a real jerk from the beginning. He was extremely biased about who he played with, had a mouth like an Irishman, and would pick on anybody who didn't abide by his wants and rules. Example, I had my Game Boy with me one time and he wanted to play on it. I told him no. The very next day, I was called to the office because I was bullying him by not sharing my toys. And then he made up another lie about me crying in front of the principal, which he used to get everyone to pick on me for being such a crybaby. That is just one example, but this story is the worst one. Now, when I was 10, my mom got me a really awesome bike. It was a copper Schwinn that looked like a Harley-Davidson motorcycle with bike pedals. I rode it everywhere I went, and of course, it got a lot of looks from the neighborhood kids. Entitled Kid was one of them. One day, he had come to my neighbor's house, who I was playing some game with, my bike laying on the grass. He comes over and was like, "Hey OP, let's go play in the park." The trailer park had its own little playground that all the kids would go to and play on every day. I never went there because nobody would come with me. So I, being a stupid kid, fell for it and got on my bike. Neighbor followed me. Entitled Kid was there waiting for us when we got there, and for the first time, we were playing together. We went on the jungle gym and laughing, talking like real friends would. Suddenly, he was out of my sight for a minute, when I then felt a real sharp pain in my back. I dropped to the ground and all I heard was, "Run!" I got to my feet when I noticed Entitled Kid was on my bike, riding it as fast as he could down the street with neighbor right behind him. Right beside me was a softball bat. I ran after them, but me being a pudgy guy, I couldn't catch up to them. So, in tears, I went straight home and told my mom everything. She immediately got her coats and we drove right to Entitled Kid's house. And sure enough, my bike was there, laying on the grass on his lawn. Mom went straight for the door and banged on it loudly. Coming to the door was Entitled Mother, looking like a prostitute. No, seriously, she looked awful. Sagging skin, smoking a cigarette, wearing a tube top, all that sexy stuff. I can't remember the exact dialogue, but it consisted of my mom telling her about what happened and her not showing the least bit of interest. She even laughed a few times. But I did hear her, at one point, say, "Boys will be boys," before taking another draw on her cigarette. And yes, Entitled Kid was staring through a window, making faces at me. Eventually, Entitled Mom just slammed the door. Mom told me to grab my bike. I did and started to ride it back home, my mom driving in front of me. Everything was going back to normal. I went home and had supper. My back was hurting pretty bad and Mom was telling me that I got a giant bruise from the attack. Then we hear pounding on our door. I open it up and standing at the stairs were two police officers, with Entitled Mother standing on our lawn with Entitled Kid on my bike.
There he is, that's him.
Hey, this lady says you stole her son's bike. Is your mom home?
What? That's my bike.
Just get your mom, kid.
My mom comes to the door and starts talking to the cops outside. Both her and Entitled Mom were raising their voices while I looked on from the door, which was glass so I could see perfectly with it being closed. I couldn't quite hear what they were saying, but it sure looked like Entitled Mother was just talking out her ass and Entitled Kid was riding around on my bike, looking like he was going to get himself a free ride. Then my mom opened the door. "OP, come out here." I did.
Your mom says that this kid hit you with a bat.
Which he didn't? Yeah!
Suddenly, Mom spins me around and lifts my shirt, and I couldn't see her face, but I did hear Entitled Mother mutter a slight, "oh." And that was enough for the cops to suddenly turn their attention to them, and they approached Entitled Kid and told him to get off my bike. He wasn't budging, still saying it was his bike. Entitled Mother literally pulled him off the bike and he landed, side first, on the concrete driveway. He started to cry, but did I feel sorry for him? Of course not. Before I knew it, Entitled Mother was being handcuffed. She started spewing out obscenities and blaming me for turning her son into a little bastard. Entitled Kid was taken home where he would eventually be taken away to be with a family, I guess. So, in the end, Entitled Mother got arrested and charged with contributing to the delinquency of a minor, child's cruelty, and, from what Mom would tell me years later, something that had to do with drugs. Pretty sure she was taking them, but for all I know, she could have been selling them. All I know is she was put away for close to 7 years for all that. Entitled Kid, however, was left off the hook. Apparently, because he was underage, he couldn't be charged with battery. All I know is I didn't see much of him after this. He moved in with his dad, I think. The reason why I suddenly remember all this is because just recently, I had seen a mugshot of a guy being arrested for attempted robbery of a gas station. Sure enough, it was him. Entitled Kid, all grown up, obviously still a jerk, but now with karma biting him square in the butt. I hope both of them get help soon, but also hope I never see any of them ever again. Okay, first of all, I had a bike like that, except it didn't look like a Harley, it looked like a dirt bike. And I got it when I was like 7, 8 maybe? Anyways, that sounds really messed up. That mom was definitely not a very good mother. You see, that's what sucks, man, because, you know, the kids, they're a blank slate, more or less. You know, there are other factors, but, you know, for the most part, you know, we're victims of our environment, I feel like. So the mom being a crappy mother like that just doomed that kid to growing up like this, and that's sad. But obviously, you know, at some point we have to be held accountable for our own actions, and there are people who have had horrible, horrible mothers like that grew up to be great people. And I'm not saying this guy isn't accountable for what he's doing, but I'm just saying, you know, it definitely makes it more likely for him to be something like that than if he were to have a good, you know, family life growing up.
Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell to never miss an episode.